the change a little bit about the way that maybe do something a little bit different than what we have been doing for exhortation. So I want to start off talking about Mark Twain, of all things. You've all kind of know something about him, probably. Kind of a native of Missouri, but spent a lot of time in Connecticut, and he's buried in Elmira. I was down in Elmira the other day. Didn't actually go see his grave. Kind of wanted to, but a number of years ago, and the number might be 150 at this point. I didn't notice the exact year that he had written this, but he wrote a lot of humorous short stories, and one of them was about a ditty. And my family would know about this because we've read it, and it's a little series of phrases that somebody would repeat, and he got it stuck in his mind, okay? And he couldn't get out of his mind for like 2 or 3 days. All he could think of was this crazy little ditty. And I won't tell you all of it. I tried not to read it real closely because it's one of these things that's infectious. And it has to do something about a conductor on a train punching tickets. And it goes along and says, "Punch, brother, punch. Punch the ticket of the passenger," or something like that. But it's 5 or 6 lines to the thing, and the whole story is that he's got this stuck in his head, and it's driving him crazy. He cannot sleep. He breaks out in a cold sweat because no matter what he does, this thing is just echoing in his mind, and drove him nuts. And it was stuck in his head until he finally repeated it enough times to someone else that it got stuck in that person's head. And at that point he was kind of cured, but this other guy was crazy for several days. If anybody wants to read the whole thing, let me know. I'll make a photocopy of it and send it out to you, and then you can take your chances at reading over it. It's a hilarious story. It really is. But it did remind that the reason I thought of that is because last week I had gotten a song stuck in my head that I couldn't get rid of it. And there's a lot of secular music out there. There's a lot of religious music out there. But there are some secular tunes that do not have very good messages. But you hear a song, and that gets stuck in your head. This thing that you really ought not to be thinking about. But you can't get rid of it. It's the same sort of thing. And so I'm thinking about this thing about Mark Twain. So I went and found the story and read it. But you get those things rattling around in your head. How do you get away from it? How do you change what it is you're thinking about it? Because God created us with a memory for songs and musical tunes. Almost all of advertising has to do with a catchy little tune. And you can remember those things from your youth. The boys used to sing those things all the time, drove Rhonda and I crazy. But it's such a strong part of our mental abilities that it's it's a very strong sort of thing. But how do you get rid of that tune? You have to replace it with something else. You just can't sit there and think about it. I got to stop thinking about this because it's like thinking about the white elephant. All of a sudden you can't stop thinking about the white elephant. So Philippians 4:8 says, "Finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good repute, if there's any excellence, and if anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things." So we're to dwell on the positive things, not dwell on the things that are negative, like in a lot of the common secular music and everything else. For me, one of the things that I try to dwell on instead is a different piece of music, if it's music that is bothering me. And I particularly like to think about "Be Still My Soul." You can turn to the 87 in your songbooks if you'd like. We're going to kind of go through this song. The reference there is "Be still and know that I am God." Just some quick background, and I've got a lot more background available if you want this. Most of you know Wayne Walker, remember Wayne Walker, heard of Wayne Walker. He writes a hymn of the day sort of thing. We've got several hundred. I don't think he does it daily anymore, but we've got several hundred on the computer. One of them is this one right here. And so I kind of went through that, shortened significantly what he'd written about backgrounds and everything else. But the words from this song go back to 1752. You see the author's name there, Katharina von Schlegel. It was written in German in 1752. Translated into English and published in 1855. 100-year gap. The woman that had translated it, she and her sister went through and did a 4-volume set translating German hymns into English, and this is one of them that she did. The music is entitled Finlandia, written by Jean Sibelius as part of a larger tone poem in 1899. So another 50 years after it was translated into English, Sibelius wrote the music as part of this larger work, and eventually carved out this one little tune called and named it Finlandia. But the tone poem was also called Finlandia. And the words and the music were finally brought together in 1932 and published in a Presbyterian hymnal in 1933. So in some respects, even though it's only been with us 80 years, it goes back several hundred years in its origin. I had thought that Finlandia was the national hymn of Finland, and it's not. There's a different song, but it's part of the national music of Finland, and widely recognized, kind of like the way that in the United States our national anthem is the Star Spangled Banner, but America the Beautiful is something that everybody would recognize in the United States. God Bless America, it's one of those tunes that is just so widely known. I guess there's even been an effort to maybe make it the national anthem, because the one that is kind of the de facto national anthem isn't really officially the national anthem, whatever, extra stuff. Two things that really make this, I think, an excellent hymn, one that appeals to me so much. I think it's very scripturally sound, okay? A hymn that is not scripturally sound is not a good hymn, first of all, so that one's kind of obvious. And the other part is memorable music that fits the message so well. And the tune and the words just really fit together beautifully on this. And yet, you think 3 different things had to come together over the course of 200 years for this thing to come down to us. So, both of those things, scriptural soundness and a good tune, are the things that make it easy for us to remember. And that's why I find it a very useful hymn when I need to sing something without being able to look at the music. It's one that comes to mind very, very easily. So, okay. So in the first stanza, starts off, "Be still, my soul, the Lord is on thy side." And this is a kind of a reminder that there's turmoil and agitation in life, and if we're not careful, we can let that influence us in a way that doesn't do us any good. Those influences can disturb us inwardly. And so this phrase that it starts off with is a reminder from our mind to our soul that we have God on our side. So there can be turmoil going on, but hey, calm down, relax. Remember, God is there to help us through things. It reminds us that we're not alone. Even if we feel alone, there's the reminder, God is on our side. The Lord is on our side. Bear patiently the cross of grief or pain. Be patient in the face of grief and suffering. Jesus tells us, Matthew 16:24, deny ourselves, take up whatever cross comes our way, and follow him. This is a verse that is an example. In fact, there are several of these. Some of these verses I got out of Wayne's writing. Several of them came to my mind instead of the verses that he had. And there are probably others that strike your mind when you're listening to the different phrases in this thing. So, leave to thy God to order and provide. In every change, he faithful will remain. In other words, let God handle the big stuff, because us trying to do that is just bringing us turmoil. But every change that comes along in our lives, God is going to remain faithful to us as long as we remain faithful to him. 1 Corinthians 10:13, God will not allow you, to be tempted beyond what you can bear, but will bring to your remembrance a way out. That is the idea there. Be still, my soul, thy best, thy heavenly friend, through thorny ways leads to a joyful end. Turn to, I'll turn there, you don't have to. Hebrews 10, doing some studying in Hebrews, 35 through 39. Therefore, do not throw away your confidence, which has a great reward, for you have need of endurance, so that when you have done the will of God, you may receive what was promised. For yet in a little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay. But my righteous one shall live by faith. If he shrinks back, my soul has no pleasure in him. But we are not of those who shrink back to destruction, but of those who have faith to the preserving of the soul. So the reminder is there that, hey, soul, your heavenly friend, God himself, is going to be faithful and has a joyful end in mind for us. The second verse, be still, my soul, thy God doth undertake to guide the future as he has the past. In Matthew chapter 6, the middle of the Sermon on the Mount, verse 33 and 34, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Therefore do not be anxious for tomorrow will care for itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So, worry about the things for today, but don't worry very much about them. God will take care of those, just the way he's going to take care of the things that come along for us tomorrow. Romans 8:28 is another verse that comes to mind here. We know that God causes all things to work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. There's the reminder. Thy hope, thy confidence, let nothing shake. All now mysterious shall be bright at last. In Matthew 10, verse 26, Jesus is encouraging the disciples that the hidden things that we don't understand, okay, which I would kind of call them the unanswered whys of life. You know, you just go along, why did this happen? And there's no answer to it at all, okay? But God can work through that for us, and I think it'll eventually be revealed to us why those things happen to us as well. You know, the things that were the big puzzles, why did this happen? Matthew 10:26, therefore do not fear them. He's talking specifically about go back to 24. A disciple is not above his teacher, nor a slave above his master. It's enough for the disciple that he become as his teacher and the slave as his master. If they have called the head of the house Beelzebul, how much more the members of his household? Therefore do not fear them. For there's nothing covered that will not be revealed, and hidden that will not be known. What I tell you in the darkness, speak in the light. What you hear whispered in your ear, proclaim among the housetops. And do not fear those who kill the body, but are unable to kill the soul, but rather fear whom is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. This is a very familiar passage to us. The point of the passage is that these things that are unknown to us, these unrevealed whys, eventually will be. The light bulb is going to come on. We will have an understanding of those things that puzzled us all along, I believe. If we're faithful. If we're not faithful, that light bulb is not going to, a different light bulb is going to come on. Okay. Say it that way. And at the end of verse 2, be still my soul, the waves and winds still know his voice who ruled them while he dwelt below. I think there's a reference to Jesus speaking, peace, be still. Okay, Mark 4, verse 39. Nature is still under God's control. Okay? And when you look at the natural world is going to listen to God. When God says, do this to the natural world obeys what God says. So much easier it would be for man if we did the same thing. But he's given us the ability to say no. Okay? That's one of the things that separates us from nature. We're a part of nature, we're part of the world, but nature always obeys what God says. It's unfortunate that we do not. The third stanza is not in our book. We've got 3 verses right here. There's actually 5 verses that were written. What we see as number 3 is actually the 4th stanza. We're short on time, so I won't go through the 3rd stanza. The 4th stanza, be still my soul, the hour is hastening on when we shall be forever with the Lord. It's kind of hard to repeat this without following the meter of the song. James 4:14, familiar. Yet you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You are just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. That's such an interesting perspective, I think, that James gives us. We are a vapor that vanishes. Okay? God's there through the whole thing. In 1 Thessalonians 4:17, then we who are alive and remain, Paul is talking to the Thessalonians, the people in Thessalonica about how things are going to be at the end of times. And it says, we who are alive and remain will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so we shall always be with the Lord. Okay? Again, this is a phrase in the song that matches precisely with what the scriptures teach. When disappointment, grief, and fear are gone, sorrow forgot, love's purest joys restored. Revelation 21:4, and he will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will no longer be any death. There will no longer be any mourning, or crying, or pain. The first things have passed away. And then, we can look forward to something that's just going to be fantastic, because there will no longer be a reason for sorrow and fear and grief and disappointment. And then finishes, be still my soul, when change and tears are past, all safe and blessed we shall meet at last. What is the songwriter getting at right there? I'm not absolutely certain of. Okay, and on the one hand, it almost sounds like you and your soul will be reunited. And I don't quite get that. I don't think that's what they were intending, but that's my first thought when I read it. So Philippians 1:23, but I'm hard pressed from both directions, having the desire to depart and be with Christ, for that is very much better. I think that's what the author of the song is getting at, is that we will be reunited with Jesus, okay, when we finish the tasks that lie here on earth for us. The fifth stanza I don't even have with me, but there's a fifth one, and for the most part the flavor of them just kind of moves along the same way. And there are a number of hymns that have also been written to the same tune, that kind of, they obviously flow about the same way. And so I think there's even a popular song or two that has used the tune for a completely different set of words. So I hope that will help you if you ever get stuck after reading Mark Twain or listening to some other music that just kind of affects you for a while. If not this song, pick one that works for you, because we need to get our mind off of bad things and on to better things. So, thank you.